Okay, so I think we're just about ready to begin. We are still, believe it or not, in chapter 1 of the laws of neighbors. We have a long way to go, 14 chapters in Maimonides. So we have, this can keep us busy for a while. So we have the overarching idea, which we have to keep coming back to because everything is premised on that idea. And that idea is that partners can compel each other to break the partnership. And in most cases, in other words, even unilaterally, if one partner wants to get out, he's able to do so unilaterally in most cases. And the complicated idea of how to get out of a partnership is how do you divide the assets of the partnership? So the big idea here, we said many times, we'll say it again today, is that if it's something that is easily divisible, you just divide it and there's not a problem. So for example, if you have money, you split the cash in half. If you have a field that produces a certain amount of produce, you split it in half, etc. We have two problems. One problem is when something is not easily divisible because it's not something that can be split. So you have a bathhouse, for example, so you can't split it in half. That was one problem, and that's what we discussed in the first few classes. And the solution of the Talmud, again, in the Talmud, it's up for debate, but one opinion of the Talmud, and that's the ruling of Maimonides, and that becomes the ruling of the halacha, is that one partner could tell the other person, we're going to split, buy me out at this price, or if you don't want to, I will buy you out at this price. In Talmudic language, it's called gud ai gud, which is rhymes, so it's easy to remember. But the point here is that that's how we make sure the price is fair, because if I want to buy you out for a price that's too low, then you just turn around and buy me out and I'll lose. If I put out a price that's too high, okay, so you will gain. Very good. So that's the problem. That's how we deal with a situation where it's not easy to divide because the object is indivisible. That was one issue. Last week we started a new issue. What happens if the reason why it's hard to divide this piece of land is because it's too small. So in other words, if something is too small, we can't divide. And we went into some of the details that we didn't read all of this inside, but for example, we said that a courtyard has to have 4 cubits by 4 cubits. If it's not 4 cubits by 4 cubits, it's not a front yard. It's not a front yard. It's a nice thing. It's a nice patch. You can plant your tomatoes there, but it's not a front yard. In New York City, when you go to a listing and it says we're renting an apartment, we have a beautiful vegetable garden, what they really mean is that there's a fire escape. And on the fire escape, you can put two what do they call, pots of earth, and there you can plant any vegetable you want. So that's the definition of a vegetable garden in New York City. But in Talmudic times, living in Iraq, there was more land, and a courtyard means you have 4 cubits by 4 cubits. So if we have a piece of land, where partners are sharing a courtyard, and it's 6 cubits by 6 cubits, so we say you can't divide that as indivisible. And if it's indivisible, too bad, we can't divide it. That's what we said last week. Now we're going to add a little bit of a detail to it, which is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Because again, we're learning law, but it's not just law. It's about values of society and what the people valued and what Torah wants you to value. And that's why this is so interesting, because the law is just the expression of the deeper ideas. So so far that's what we're up to last time. Now, here is the question for this week. The first question. We have other questions for this week, but this is the first question for this week. We have a courtyard that's 6 cubits by 6 cubits. I don't want to be your partner for whatever reason. I don't like you. I decided I need my privacy. Doesn't matter. I want to get out of this partnership. The problem is the Talmud says that you can't split this because if you split it, each party would get 3 cubits by 3 cubits. And 3 cubits by 3 cubits is too small to divide because it's not considered a courtyard. Okay, so I have a good head and I come up with an elegant solution. Okay, I don't want to be your partner. We have a courtyard here that's 6 feet by 6 feet, 6 cubits by 6 cubits. I'll say feet, it's really more than feet, but I'll call it feet for the sake of simplicity. So we have a courtyard that's 6 feet by 6 feet. Talmud says minimum of a courtyard is 4 by 4. No problem. I say, let's put up a fence. I will give you 4 by 4, and I will take 2 by 2. Isn't that so simple, so elegant, so beautiful? I'm willing to divide, and I'll take the smaller part. Not a problem. Seems so perfect. Talmud says, no, you can't do it. If it's not 8 by 8, we cannot divide. Even if I say that I'm willing to take the smaller part. I will give you 4 by 4. I'll take 2 by 2. Can't be done. Why not? That's the question. Okay, let me just rephrase. This question is a Talmudic dispute. I said we don't follow it because that's what Maimonides rules. But this is a Talmudic dispute. It's a Talmudic dispute. So whatever you're going to say now, whatever you say, you're in solid ground. Again, case is as follows. Case is we have a courtyard that's 6 feet by 6 feet. I want to divide it, but I can't because I'm one party and I want to divide. And that's what we're saying here. We're saying shchenim, neighbors are allowed to separate. They're allowed to divide. Partners could divide. Neighbors could divide. We like division because we like privacy. We'll talk about all this as we go along. So the common solution would be that one party could divide unilaterally, compel the parties to divide. The problem is that would work if we had 8 feet by 8 feet, because then every person would get 4 feet by 4 feet, which according to the Talmud, that is considered that's considered a courtyard. And therefore, the principle was you can only divide something which each party will get a size that retains the name that it was before. So in other words, when it was 8 by 8, it was considered a courtyard. 4 by 4 is smaller, but it's also considered a courtyard. But if you split it and you give me a section that's less than than 4 by 4, then it's doesn't retain the name. Before I was a partner in a courtyard, and now I have my own patch of land, but it's not a courtyard. It's too small to be a courtyard. So that was the formula that we coined, that Maimonides coined for us last time. We said the only thing that can be divided is something that when you divide it, each piece retains the name of the whole. So now going back to our case, we have a field, we're partners, we have 2 homes next to each other, we have a courtyard. The courtyard is 6 by 6. So by the logic of what we learned up until now, I can't compel the division of this land. Why not? Because you will get 3 by 3 and I will get 3 by 3, and 3 by 3 is too small to be called a garden. So now the question becomes, this was the big question, is can I say, you know what? Let's divide it. You'll get 4 by 4. You'll get everything you need. You'll get a full garden. I'll take 2 by 2.
But it's not going to be fair because the other one is not going to have something that's going to have the same name. So it's a sacrifice on that person.
I'm allowed to sacrifice. I would rather have 2 by 2 than be a partner with you for 6 by 6. Again, no offense. It's not you. For whatever reason, I want to break up the partnership. I don't like my neighbor for whatever reason. I'm willing. I have no problem. You want 4, I'll give you 4. I'd rather have 2 myself than be a partner with you for 6 by 6. I know I'm taking a loss. I'm willing to take a loss. It's my money. I'm allowed to take a loss. What's the problem?
But Talmud doesn't encourage it for that same reason, that the sacrifice is not working in this case.
The question is, so one second, Talmud has 2 opinions. One opinion says I could do it. One opinion says I can't do it. Maimonides says I can't do it. What's the reason why? For the Talmudic opinion says I can't do it. And here's the big idea. Beautiful. The big idea is you, Vicky, you tell me I don't want a gift. There is a principle in the Talmud, in Judaism. It's a verse. Soneh matanot yichyeh. Somebody who does not accept gifts will live long. So my neighbor says, you're giving me a gift that I don't deserve. I don't want a gift. I have a right not to accept a gift. right? So I want to compel you to separate. I say, Vicky, take 4 by 4. I'm taking 2 by 2. You take 4 by 4. I take 2 by 2. We have a lot that's 6 by 6. You have to get 4 because otherwise I can't compel a division. I'll give you 4. I take 2. What could go wrong? Says Maimonides, no. The other person could say, sorry, I'm not interested in any gifts. You have the value. Somebody who hates presents will live long because they have trust in God and they don't want to accept the gifts. So you have a right not to accept a gift. So therefore, you could stop the division by saying, I don't want a gift. Sorry, I don't want a gift. So that, I think it's a fascinating law. Again, I'm not saying that there's other ways to look at it. And that's why the Talmud itself has 2 opinions. But that's what Maimonides rules. So that's just setting it up. Now I want to try to read it inside. And then we move. This is the final section of final section of chapter 1. And then we move to chapter 2. And the end of chapter 2, things start getting exciting again. I mean, everything is exciting, but you know what I mean.
What if the other person does accept the gift, has no problem with accepting?
If both parties agree, there's no question. The question becomes, can I, one second, I don't know if do you see Maimonides or do you see some other thing?
Screensaver.
Screensaver, that's not good. We don't want to see screensaver. Stop share, let's do it again. How about now?
Yes.
Okay. If both parties agree, no problem. If both parties agree, no problem. The problem here is one party wants to separate, the other party doesn't, because listen, the other person, for some person, I'd rather have 2 for myself rather than 6 by 6 shared. For the other person, I'd rather have 6 by 6 shared, right? So both parties agree, there's no problem. The problem becomes if they don't agree, and typically the Talmud has a system where you could, in many cases, one party could unilaterally force a division. Why? Because the Talmud, as we will see, articulated very well at the end of chapter 2. The Talmud believes in the right to privacy, and the way it puts it is hezek re'iyah, that if I look at your space, I am damaging you. You have to define what that damage is, but I'm damaging you in the sense that I'm invading your privacy, and therefore we have protect the person's right to privacy more than other damages, as we will discuss, which is a fascinating concept for itself. But in most cases, we allow for the division. We have exceptions. Some things you can't divide. What are you going to do? I have a Torah scroll. What are you going to do? You're going to tear it in half? It doesn't work. So what could you do? So there we have the system where I can compel you to buy my half, or give you the option to buy my half. I give you the option, either I buy out your half or you buy out my half at a given price. And like I said, I pick the price and you pick if you want to buy or sell. But again, there's some things that are complicated, and that is that one class of things are things where the object is too small. If you divide it, it's going to lose its previous name, like a courtyard. So here, I can't compel a division, because if you get 3 and I get 3, 3 by 3, you get 3 by 3 and I get 3 by 3, none of us have a courtyard. So I can't force you. So Vicky says, what happens if you both agree? If you both agree, fine. What happens if I say, you know what, I'll give you 4, I'll take 2. If you agree, fine. And the point is, I can't do it unilaterally. What happens if I say, I'm giving you 4, I'm willing to sacrifice 2? How could you tell me that I can't separate from you if I'm giving you 4, I'm giving you everything, all your rights are being protected? You say, no, my right not to accept the gift is also a right. So you cannot force me to accept the gift. Okay, so let's scroll down to the end of the chapter. This is what we said yesterday. So I'm going to go to the end of 5. We'll just read it inside. If the entity is not large enough to divide. We discussed what that means earlier in section 4. We had this last week. I'm just going to run it quickly. What is meant by a property being large enough to divide? That if it were divided among the partners, I'm reading over here in the beginning of 4, even the partner with the smallest share would receive a portion of the property large enough to be referred to by the same name that is used to refer to the entire entity. We'll go to the next paragraph for an example. What is implied? And this was the example before, what we said last week. Whenever a courtyard does not contain 4 cubits by 4 cubits, it cannot be a courtyard. I'm skipping to the next paragraph because he brings other examples. Therefore, a courtyard is not divided among partners unless it is large enough for each of the partners to receive at least 4 cubits by 4 cubits. Okay, skipping to the end of 5. If the entity is not large enough to divide, but one partner says to the other, let us divide this even though the portions are not equal. I will take the smaller portion and you take the larger portion. So in our case, I'm your partner. In other words, I'm your neighbor, and we share the usage of a courtyard. The courtyard is 6 feet by 6 feet. I say, look, I'm giving you 4 by 4. I'm taking 2 by 2. Let's divide. I want to compel a division. So you say it was too small to divide. It's not 8 by 8. If it's 8 by 8, I can force you to divide. But it's 6 by 6. I can't force you. I say, 1 second. I'm giving you 4 by 4. You have everything you need. I'll take 2 by 2. What's the problem with that? We are not required to accept his proposition. In other words, the other person doesn't have to accept it. And therefore, the division, he could stop the division. The other partner could stop the division. Why? For the other partner will tell him, I do not desire to receive a gift. And if I don't desire to receive a gift, you cannot force me to receive a gift. So the only way to divide it, so what am I doing? Am I forced to be your relative, to be your neighbor? No. Instead, since the entity is not large enough for an equal division, we assess its financial value. What does it mean we assess its financial value? Maimonides himself does not explain. But the commentaries explain that what it means that there's different opinions what this means, but one opinion is that if we go the old process, if I want to divide a courtyard that's too small, I tell you, either buy me out or I will buy you out. And we use that formula. So that is the law that we learned today. Of course, we still have a few minutes. We'll learn another few laws, but that's the law. But again, what value did we teach today? We taught today that the value is that there is a principle that people did not want to accept gifts, and therefore you cannot accept the person, you can't force the person to accept a gift. And therefore, since you can't accept a force, we protect your right to privacy. And in this case, and in addition, we protect your right not to receive, to decline to receive a gift. I just thought that was interesting. You don't expect that to appear in the law. If that's a value, I don't want to accept a gift. That's a value, but that trickles down to the law. It's a verse in Mishlei, in Proverbs chapter 15. It says, someone who hates gifts will live long. So that's the end. That's the conclusion of chapter 1. Mazel tov. We should make a party. We should make a siyum. And now we can move on to hopefully chapter 2. But in the meantime, if anybody has any comments or questions, please share. Otherwise, we continue.
Rabbi.
Yes.
Quick question, please. Regarding the option where one of the individuals says, I don't have to take a gift. It's not my obligation to take a gift. In its purest form, that's well and good. He's observing a law, and that's well and good. But suppose that person is using that as a negotiating tactic.
He's right.
That brings another element into the whole scenario.
That's right. Look, let's be transparent. Let's be fair. The guy doesn't want to divide. That could be his motivation, right? But even though he doesn't want to divide, and that's his motivation, and saying I don't want to accept a gift is just a legal tactic, we can't. You have a right. He's able to evoke that legal protection, and say you cannot force me to accept a gift. Now again, he's only saying that because he doesn't want to divide. Right. But that's his right. You can't take away people's rights. Remember, let's start from the beginning. We're both partners. For whatever reason, me and you, Richie, actually we used to be partners because we used to be neighbors. Right? So we have a common space within it. So we both agree to become partners, to use this land together for whatever reason. The fact that I could break up this partnership unilaterally is a big chidush. In the Talmudic language, you would say it's a novelty. It's not a simple matter, right? So the fact that you're letting me break out without your consent, even though we enter this partnership in a consent way, with consensus of both of us, so you're letting me break out unilaterally, that's actually pretty amazing. In other words, it's actually almost surprising. And like I said, in America, it wouldn't happen, as best as I understand the law. But what's happening here? What's happening here is, so the Torah gives me a right to break out. Why? Because the Torah values the right to privacy and other rights. The Torah also, I think it's also that the Torah wants to encourage partnerships. And if you're going to make it very difficult to break out of a partnership, no one's going to enter a partnership. So for whatever reason, the Torah wants to protect my right to get out of a partnership as much as possible. But the other partner also has rights. And what are your rights? Your right is that you shouldn't lose by the fact that I want to break my partnership. And that's what we spend the full chapter trying to protect the rights of the other party. And now there's another right. The other right that we learned about today is nobody, the law cannot compel you to accept a gift. You're not interested in accepting a gift. What are we going to do? So Richard says, yeah, that's a tactic. The guy doesn't really care about accepting a gift. I saw him yesterday in the pizza store and he accepted a gift. Okay, doesn't matter. I don't have to accept a gift. And therefore, if you're smart and you want to break, and you don't want the partnership, you don't want the division to be, you don't want it to be separated, you could say, I don't want to accept a gift, and that's your legal right. So the point is, yeah, you're right. You're right. Sometimes it's a legal tactic, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, but maybe was Richard said something?
No, I just said thank you for the answer.
Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, what is the value in this, not in the way you apply it, but principle itself, because it takes the reference to another law that you will live long if you don't accept the gifts, if you respect somebody else's property and rights. So that's the actual value, not the way you apply it.
Respecting the other person's rights, because you choose to give me a gift, I have the right to accept it. But I think that there is a value in somebody who says that I want to be dependent only on God. In other words, not just God, it's my work, but I want to be able to support myself directly from the blessings that God gives me. And if I need gifts from other people, then all of a sudden I start hoping in other people instead of hoping in God. When we pray, if you're going to open up the prayer book where we pray in the grace after meals, after we eat, so we ask God to give us, we thank God for sustenance, for the food. Okay, that's an important theme in the grace after meals. But then there's an interesting blessing, and the blessing is as follows. The blessing is, I'm reading the Chabad prayer book on page 91. It's the third blessing of the prayer book of the grace after meals, and we say as follows in the middle of the blessing: Our God, our Father, nourish us, sustain us, and feed us, and provide us with plenty, and speedily, Lord our God, grant us relief from all our affliction. Lord our God, please do not make us dependent upon the gifts of mortal men, nor upon their loans, but only upon your full, open, holy, and generous hand, that we may never be ashamed or disgraced. So this is something we say every day. Not today. Today people are on no-carb diets, but it used to be people, the main staple was bread. And you said this twice a day. You say, God, do me a favor. I want to get my sustenance directly from you. I don't want loans and I don't want gifts. That's our prayer. That's what we hope for. Sometimes a person, unfortunately, is not able to do that. So a person needs gifts. So it's not a sin to accept a gift. Nothing wrong with accepting a gift. But is there a value? Someone says, I want my portfolio to come, my assets to come directly from God. In other words, God blessing my own efforts. I don't want to be dependent on people. You have the right. You can't. I don't want to, even psychologically, it says, I don't want to be dependent on you. You give me a gift, all of a sudden I'm dependent. I owe you a favor. I don't want to owe anybody a favor. I don't want to owe people favors, right? So a person, even psychologically, either could say this is a faith value, or you could say this is just basic psychology and basic integrity. You look at politics without getting political. Political system works that the politician needs to raise money from the constituents. So all of a sudden, the guy is dependent on so many people, and if you're dependent on so many people and you owe so many people favors, it's not a model that is conducive to being able to leading and inspiring people. How can I inspire someone if I'm dependent on that person? Right? So if I say, I don't want to owe anybody anything, period, end of story, I have the right. Now my neighbor forces me to take an extra 2 feet by 2 feet. Now I'm going to be indebted. Every time I walk by my neighbor, I feel bad. I owe him a favor. I don't want to owe you a favor. I don't want to know you. Okay? So you're going to force me to owe you a favor? Not interested. That's the right that you have not to accept a gift. So I answered you 2 answers. I'm talking too much, but to clarify, I said 2 points. Number one, it's a thing of faith. God will give me what I need. I don't want to accept from people. That's a righteous people always follow that. The Maimonides talks about this, that people who are very righteous trust only in God. They don't want to have gifts from other people. Okay, that's one perspective, one reason for the value. The other reason could be more psychological. In Yiddish there's a phrase, tu mir nicht kentayvis, don't do me any favors. If you do me a favor, I'm indebted to you. I owe you something. Every time I'm always thinking, do I owe you? Am I going to offend you? What I'm doing now, is that going to pay you back? Don't do me any favors. We had a neighbor growing up, a very nice man, very, very nice man. And because he was so nice man, so we wanted to help him. So I don't know why I'm saying this story. I'll say it anyway. So I have no idea why I'm saying this story. So we wanted to help him. So our homes were old homes, so they were oil heated. So because my mother's family is in the real estate business, so they had good prices on oil, and the oil truck would come and fill up our house with oil for a good price. Now the truck is already coming, so we told the neighbor, we'd love to give you the same rate. Favor, And over the years, we're talking over 30 years, he probably saved him a fortune. Came a time, unfortunately, that for him, that we decided that we have to make the house bigger. We had many children. We have to make the house bigger. Okay. So he went and we got the permits and we expanded the house. The problem was that we expanded the house and it took away some of the man's sunlight. He was very upset. But it was legal. What are you going to do? We got the permits. Fine. It was in our right to do. From that point on, he said, you know what? I don't want the oil. I said, why don't you want the oil? I'm giving you oil for what, the half price? He says, no, I don't want the oil. And that's what it was. From then on, there's no more oil. Not because we don't want to give, he doesn't want to take. Okay, you don't want to, don't take. But you see, I want to be in a fight with you. I don't want a gift from you. Okay, you see what I'm saying? A guy has a right. What, are you going to force him to buy the oil for half price? You can't force him to buy the oil for half price. So I don't know if this story helps or makes it better or worse. But that's the story that popped in my head.
But it helps because it supports the psychological point. But the divine point is still there, and I think the Maimonides kind of reinforces, gives that divine value, a legal explanation.
I will try to pull up the actual quote from Maimonides, how he elaborates upon this. I think we have to find it. I have to just find it. Let's see how good Google is. Oh, here it is. Okay, I'll find it. Give me just a second. I'm going to find it in English, God willing, if I could get my act together here. And we'll pull it up and we'll read it. We'll see. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's a point here that I missed, subtle point that I missed, but it's worth it to check it up. Like my teacher used to say in high school, he said, whatever you have a question, you have to check it up. Don't rely on the sources. Don't waste your faith on such matters. Instead, you should look it up by yourself. Okay, so I'm going through here. Sfia Matana. Okay, this is very interesting. I like this. This is very interesting. Okay. First of all, I just want to tell you where this appears in Maimonides. This appears at the end of 12 chapters called Zechia Matana, which is the rights of acquisition and gifts. It's actually the same book of Maimonides that we're in, with the laws of Kinyan, the laws of acquisitions. So in that book, even before the laws of neighbors, you have the laws of gifting, right? If I give you a gift, what's considered a gift? If I give a gift, can I retract? There's so many laws. There's 12 chapters about gifts. So gifts is fine. There's nothing wrong with accepting a gift. We have 12 chapters discussing the laws of the gifts. Finally, at the end of all 12 chapters, Maimonides drops the bomb. This is how you give a gift. But should you receive a gift? I don't know. So this is what he says. So let's read what he says. Perfectly righteous men. Hatzadikim hagmurim, perfectly righteous men. This is a high bar. If I'm not perfectly righteous, I could still cash your check. I could still accept a gift. So perfectly righteous men and men of spiritual stature would not receive gifts from other men. That was their custom. Instead, they would trust in God, blessed be his name, be his name, and not in generous men. Proverbs states, one who hates gifts will live. So this is where you have it. Now, this is not the law. Remember, this is the end of 12 chapters of explaining how gifts work and how gifts is protected, the right to give the gift. And even if you gift me, at a certain point, you can't take it away from me. It becomes mine, right? So there's nothing wrong with gifts. But if you want to talk about a higher level, if you want to be completely righteous, if you want to be a great spiritual stature, those people never accepted gifts. They trusted, I said, God, if I need it, God will give it to me. I don't need it from men. Now, not everyone's on that level. But like Richard said, if somebody wants to evoke that right, even in the context of a real estate negotiation, says, I don't want a gift. You don't want a gift? Okay, I can't force you to accept a gift because there is a value in not accepting a gift. So here you have it. More commentary than this, I don't know. You see what I see. We're looking at the same screen. Your interpretation is no better. I'm sorry, no worse than mine. Okay, so I think we could stop here for today. It's 6 minutes early, but I don't want. I think I think the next paragraph chapter is a new concept. So I think for today we'll stop here. 35 minutes of learning is good. If anyone has any comments or questions, please share. Otherwise, have a wonderful day, and we will reconvene, God willing, next week. Chapter 2 of Laws of Shchenim, of Laws of Neighbors.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Richard. Have a wonderful day.